Welcome to the Recovery Bros podcast. This is a weekly YouTube show where two guys in recovery, myself, Adam Said, and Doug Boats, translate addiction and mental health science into simple systems that young men can actually live. Through honest conversations like the one we're going to have today, that also include practical frameworks and real world reps. Today, we are honored to have the guests, Doctors Dean and Ayesha Sherzai, on our show. They are quite literally two of the most respected voices in brain health in the world. They are also best-selling authors and probably known to a lot of people out there as the brain docs. I could say so many things about them because their resume is unbelievably deep and remarkable. But I think you're going to get a sense of how incredible these individuals are from the conversation we're about to have. I'm honored to call them my very, very dear friends. I've known them for years. Dean, Aisha, thank you so much for being here.
It's our pleasure. Thank you so much for having us. And Doug, this is the first time we're meeting each other. I'm just really excited to be here and speak about something that is very near and dear to our heart.
It is. It is. I think recovery is a general topic that should be taught to everyone
I
because there are different degrees of recovery, but the mental state and the cognitive machinery and the tools needed, I think, are universal. And the people that go through it and then reflect on it and then learn on it and then build on it are the best people that will give you that path and journey. That's actually not that's something that should be taught to every human being. So
100%.
I love what you guys are doing.
Well, I think a great place to start is I think anybody who's our age probably remembers the commercial from like the 80s, This Is Your Brain on Drugs, where they like had the frying pan and they like smashed the egg. And it's like, okay, so that your brain on drugs is an egg. Like that's the conversation that it created as a culture. It was like, hey guys, don't do drugs. Your brain turns to an egg and it breaks. It's like it was very fear based, and it didn't really deliver any context or value or really any understanding. And what I would really like to get a sense of is what actually is your brain on drugs, right? From all the different, maybe different types of drugs that people either recreationally use or abuse. Is there long term effects? Can recreational use exist? And then, probably most importantly, what are the levers that people could pull right now that if they are a person in recovery, they could either halt any risk or potentially recover from it?
That's a very heavy question, meaningful question. So since you're starting at that point, I'm going to, you always hate somebody saying, okay, let me start here. And they started from their childhood.
In
So, yeah,
1982,
yeah, yeah. But I'm going to go even back evolutionarily when you're primordial beings. The reason we started to move was because we needed more information. And more information to survive. Movement gave you information to survive. Then you needed a central nervous system to record and learn from that feedback. Then you had needed a memory system to make sure that that's recorded so it's not repeated. And that took 100 million, 200 million years there. And then, see, I'm going way back
yeah,
to my forefathers, the lizards. And then you start getting rewards in the directions that increase the kind of information that survives. And the reward system started coming in. I hate to use the dopaminergic, but it's more than that because that's been overused. But the entire reward system was built, and the reward system is there to increase survival. The reward system also has this default system because when you had very little resources, your reward system would be met and not overwhelmed. That's that. Most of the time, you're just being rewarded for survival. Most of the time, not even reproduction. God forsake that would have been the lucky thing. The few. We're talking about just survival. So that reward system in a world where there is abundance, in a world where everything's being met, that reward system is now being used for peripheral, secondary things that circumvent just the survival network of reward. That's where it all starts. That's where primates actually then became successful. They could eat more than they wanted, better than chipmunks even, and these squirrels and all these guys. And now we got rewards that are accessible and in excess. And now we have to deal with that. And we are there. I know that I'm throwing a lot there that needs to be unpacked, but I think it was a good place to start with our evolutionary parents.
Yeah, we talk a lot. Doug and I talk a lot about the impact of the modern environment to counterfeit what your brain runs on, and
Yeah.
it's like, so you have this fake currency out in the world that looks a lot like the buried treasure you were looking for 100,000 years ago, and it's constantly fooling you over and over and over again, and it's a, like, Doug Lyle will say it's a trap, um, and so it's like it's very, very real, and it is just a part of the environment around us, and most drug addicts, people who are struggling with recovery, they understand that trap to such a degree where it's like, you ask them to do one thing, be slightly uncomfortable, and your life will get better. It's like, "Yeah, but I don't know if I can do that." That's that's a big ask. It's like, "Wow, you're stuck in a trap, man." It's really powerful.
Hmm.
I guess a follow-up question I have is, I know like the modern world has made it very easy for the average person to become addicted to things and also die with fentanyl now, with fentanyl in almost every substance that exists. But back to Adam's point, like I was told too that drugs rot your brain, drugs destroy your brain. If you do drugs, your brain's never going to heal. And I guess anecdotally and from learning from other people, including Adam, it's just not true. Like your brain can heal, if you do the right things. But as people who study the brain, like could you describe to the audience like what changes in your brain when you start to become addicted to drugs?
Yeah, like, is your brain a thing that drugs break, or is it something that drugs influence and you can remold it back?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a step before that too. I
Hmm.
think there are certain brains that are wired in a way where addiction is almost at the very surface level. There are addictive type of, I don't want to call them personalities because you put an identity on it, but there are certain brains that are wired in a way where there is more sense of existence and there's more sense of being alive when those pathways are triggered more often. So, and that takes a lot of the blame and the shame away from it as well. We kind of look at it from a medical perspective to say there are certain brains that are wired in a way where it needs to get that quote unquote hit, or it needs to be in that state of peak awareness or alertness for it to function appropriately. Scientists are now using imaging techniques to understand those kind of brains. And so when you're built with that biology, you're more prone to have a proclivity for, say, for example, seeking out addictive behaviors, whether it's with food or drugs or anything else. And when a person comes in contact with those kind of compounds and habits, we have the tools and we have the science to understand what actually happens in the brain. There are multiple different networks that get activated. There are particular parts of the brain, whether it's the reward system, whether it's the part of the brain that is responsible for judgment, whether it's the part of the brain that is responsible for memory and attention. The different domains of cognition get impacted as well. And there are multiple different types of neurochemicals that come into play as well. So it's either creation of different pathways and impulses or attenuation or kind of quieting down certain areas of the brain. So when someone actually is involved in an addictive behavior, there are structural and physiological and functional that changes that happen in the brain. And these can be short term, like right after, taking a drug or right after that one addictive behavior, and you can see the changes over long term as well. The good news in all of this is that the brain is very plastic. And when we say, and we use the word plastic, essentially means that it's malleable, that it completely changes. It changes short term and long term as well, which means that if there is a negative hit, there's a negative perspective or something that bad happens to the brain, we also have an opportunity for something good to happen to that brain. It is very forgiving and it has an opportunity to continue to heal itself in time.
And so when you talk about these short-term changes and these long-term changes, um, when are there certain drugs out there. Like, obviously there's opioids, there's benzodiazepines, there's amphetamines, and then there's alcohol. Are there among those, and then of course there's cannabis. Among those, are some of them far more destructive to the actual structure of the brain than others? Like to what I'm saying, like I've come to get a sense that from working with people in recovery, that when you abuse things like benzos for a long period of time, that can be like one of the most difficult recovery roads out there is recovering from benzodiazepine addiction. It's really interesting how some have such a greater impact on a person's ability to recover from the addiction, and some of them are just like a struggle, right? So
Yeah.
it's interesting.
Yeah.
I don't know if this is going to be interesting for the audience, but I want to go neurochemical. So the way the brain works, and so the reason I think both of us went into neuro because it's engineering. We're engineers at heart. You have numbness here and weakness here. Oh, I know exactly where the lesion is. It's in the spinal cord and this part of the spinal cord because the posterior columns are responsible for vibration and proprioception. And I've lost proprioception here, and I've lost vibration here, and I've lost sensation here. Oh, it's B12 deficiency that's affected the posterior column. There's the lesion.
Yeah.
It's like short circuits,
Localization.
localization, where the short circuit is. When you go to the brain itself, it is unbelievable network of on, off, on, off, on, off to, and eventually get to an outcome. So you have glutamate, glycine, dopamine, serotonin, acetylcholine, and several, not an infinite number. It's a finite number. It's, we're talking about a finite number of neurotransmitters, but they all work on off, on in different regions. So the reason I bring this up is all these drugs work with off on, but at different places. Some of them are really at the primary center of apomorphine, for example, right there at the dopaminergic reward system. Others work at the acetylcholine and glycine and glutamate areas where you're turning off certain things that downstream turns on the motivation and addiction and proclivity circuits. So the circuitry is basically the same. What you're doing to turn what part off to create a direction, to create a vector. It is completely electronics.
Mm-hmm.
Completely. And not, and this is going to piss a lot of people off because we're such self-aggrandizers as human beings. You and I have had this talk, Adam.
Exactly.
I'm very deterministic. And it's such an unpopular world and a statement in a world where you want to create woo-woo and we are humans have a unique access to consciousness and we are conscious. Like, really? Do you remember your breakfast? No. Then I was about to say shut the fuck up. But, I want to make sure that people understand I'm not reducing humanity. The ultimate human being is a incredible thing that if I say the word, you're going to be offended there as well. We're going to get to a place, hopefully, once we get past this small-mindedness. But right now, we're a very simple circuitry. And that circuitry is reward circuitry. That circuitry is reward circuitry for survival that's being circumvented because the thing that's pulling that circuitry also is pulled not just by your behaviors that takes these neurotransmitters. A chemical from outside can come in and connect to this part of the circuit and steals the circuit, or connect to this part, cocaine, and is a stimulant and pushes this part of the circuit. And another one actually subdues other parts of the circuit, so your anxiety and your fear and all those are reduced, which creates the same direction. That's beautiful because we will figure it out. The optimistic thing coming out of today, I hope if we're able to do it, is for people to realize it's a simple circuitry. We will figure it out. And even in a behavioral way, we can figure it out. And what you said, and you are a perfect example of that. You're embodiment of that. Not only can you recover, you can actually be left better because there's a meta thinking and there's molecular thinking. The meta part of us, which is how we see ourselves, thinking about ourselves, is left at a much better stage. It's suffering, it's pain, it's hurt, all of that. But the awareness was forced into a higher state. That's the beauty of those recovering. I am going to say that you are going to be left at a better state than majority of humanity because we're such cognitive misers. If we're not forced into deep meta thinking, if we're not forced into thinking about our pain and suffering, we usually don't go deep. We stay at the Friends TV show level. And all of us, what's the show series we're watching now? But when you're forced through pain and suffering and you recover, you get a person as lovely, as complete, as hurt, and full of hurt and holes and all that, but at a higher level than most people, like Adam's son.
Ah, oh, thank you. I think, you're actually just touched on something that Doug and I talk a lot about on the show, which is, you know, why would you now be willing to pick up the heaviest load you could carry and carry it uphill? Because no one goes uphill by accident,
Yeah,
right?
that's what I was saying earlier. Yeah.
Why would you do that? What would be the reason? Well, the reason is because if you do, you will become the greatest version of yourself that you could possibly be, and it won't happen unless you do it. And it's like that's the challenge that recovery asks everybody to undertake. The interesting thing is most people believe that they can't do it. And Doug and I have said it before that I'm not gonna be able to make it. Like that's not me. I can't make it over there. Said every person who on day one of their recovery, right? I'm not gonna be able to do it. But what are the things? Because one of the things you all talk about a lot is the influence of nutrition, of movement, and of learning skills. In your neuro program, you have unrest, and you have what's the exercise? There's another one though, restore.
Yeah, and optimize and
Yeah.
optimize. Yeah, so nutrition, exercise, unwind, restore, and optimize.
How does that? What are those things that you help people do? What are they, and what do they do to the brain? And can that be applied to people in recovery?
Yeah. Before we go there, I just want to because I've done this talk with others and American Psychiatric Association and all that. I want to give you and this is not just to give you fulsome flattery. Okay, I'll stop flattering you, Adam. But it's I know you're comfortable with it, but I love you for that. But it's like this. I call it the valley and the hill. Uh, you're on one plateau of the hill, and if you haven't suffered, if you haven't gone to the valley of the beast. There was this movie I was watching. There are two people on two sides of the hill, a woman and a man, and then down below are the beasts, and they're just there protecting the upper. So you're in that valley. You're not going to look up or down. You're just comfortable in that one level. When you fall down, now you have to look up, and you see that it's not just that level. There's higher levels. That's what the fall does for you. That's what the recovery does for you. If you allow it, that you can actually see, oh, that level that I was in was just one, I can go up. And it gives you that perspective. So that's one thing and that's a big whole talk about, but we will leave that for today. But as far as the neuro concept, all of the neuro concepts are critical and important for recovery. Nutrition, without good nutrition, and I want to make sure that it's not a heavy lift. It's not an all or none phenomenon. It's small stepwise successes, and not even successes. We say there's no failure. There's just data to quickly adapt and adjust and get improved. Nutrition, you need proper nutrition because nutrition, although not like a lot of the psychiatrists say that it cures your depression and this and that. No, it creates the landscape for potential recovery. If you're in a nutrition state where you're overdriven, you're overtaxed with inflammation, oxidation, glucose dysregulation, lipid dysregulation, you're not going to forget about the recovery. You don't have the footing to stand on. You don't have that hook to go to the next level. The nutrition gives you the hooks available. Exercise. Oh my God.
We could talk about that for
I mean,
hours, actually.
BDNF.
That he would love to talk about that. Doug's recovery.
I think that as much as we both have a master's in nutrition and all that, and we do nutritional work, our biggest research right now, exercise, I think, is the biggest factor. We're talking about BDNF, GDNF, VEGF, IGF. These are not just hormones. These are mega hormones for the brain. Every time you exercise, they say penny wise, dollar foolish. This is penny wise, $10 million. Exercise is the $10 million thing. It just pumps your brain with growth hormones like BDNF, GDNF, VEGF, which really completely gives recovery every time you work out at an exponential power. Forget about ashwagandha. That's like a little sprinkle of whatever. That's not even anything. Exercise is like taking 50 injections and pushing the most powerful hormones into your brain, into your body. And I'm not exaggerating. That's
Like
the power.
miracle grow for your
Yeah.
brain.
And as far as we actually call your legs your second endocrine organ. The endocrine system is mobilized and moderated by the muscles in your legs because they're the biggest muscle. And then stress management, sleep, and optimize are then just the add-ons. Now you have more than just the hooks. Now you have the rope, and then you have the little power packs that move you up. Those are powerful things that can really build your recovery system.
Yeah. Yeah. I heard you guys. Go ahead, Doug. Go ahead.
From my own experience, I was a guy who heavily abused cocaine, Oxycontin, and weed, like the weed of like the 2000s, not the stuff that's now, which is, in my opinion, is a totally different drug. But that's another story for another day. Um, but I remember I had crazy memory issues. I couldn't remember what I did the day before. I couldn't remember like what I did 6 months ago. And I know this is a big part of your research when it comes to like cognitive decline and dementia and all that is the brain and memory. Um, are these things like exercise, nutrition, just healthier habits? Can that help somebody restore their memory? Because I noticed like I was in jail, started working out, got my life together, and then my memory just came back. Like all that my brain seemed to fix itself. Is it because of my commitment to lifestyle and exercise?
Short answer is yes. Yes. It's incredible how when you give your brain a chance, and if you give it the right kind of an environment, it continues to grow and heal itself. The brain is it's a living organ and it's an ecosystem. Like Dean was saying, we use this acronym because it's really easy to share it with our patients and with our families and communities, the neuro plan. But truly, I mean, if you look at it, if people actually check off boxes in all of these areas, if you eat well, you give the right kind of an environment for your brain. If you exercise, you basically just grow the connections. And I'll talk about that in a bit, like Dean was saying. Stress management, you basically close off the doors for the brain to continue to make those connections. And you kind of make sure that all of the hormones like cortisol or adrenaline that are causing havoc in the brain to create memory, to organize itself, when it's quiet, the brain does a really good job at it. And then sleep, my goodness, I would love to talk about what actually happens during sleep because we think that we're just like shutting down and everything is turned off. But the brain does most of its important work when we are sleeping. And then cognitive activity. When when memories are formed, it's not just, a piece of information that goes into a particular part of your brain. We have different kinds of memory. We have a working memory, which basically is like, how when somebody tells you something and you don't want to forget it and you write it on a sticky note, and then you're like, okay, I'm going to put this information from a sticky note somewhere else. So you have that superficial layer of memory where you're kind of like scratching off on sticky notes. And then you have a deeper layer of memory where the information from the sticky note actually gets typed in a beautiful way with titles and subtitles in a Word document. I'm just using an analogy. And then you make sure that that Word document goes into the right file, folder, and cabinet so that you know where to get it from the next day or the next week. That organization requires a system, and that system is run properly when you have the proper infrastructure. And that infrastructure is created with lifestyle. So, Doug, you were saying when you started exercising and when you started eating well and when you started sleeping better, that infrastructure actually got built. It gets built even if we just routinely do the right things. Imagine if you have some purpose in it. Imagine if you actually create some check boxes to say things like, you know what? I'm going to eat some oatmeal in the morning and I'm going to add some flaxseed and cheese. It sounds so silly. But those tiny little things like adding some flax seeds in your oatmeal, or for example, going to exercise first thing in the morning, getting some sunshine, calling a friend, making sure that you start winding down at night and you have a proper sleep time, making sure that you connect with your community, making sure that you are aware of your stressors and you stay organized. All of those things create that infrastructure for the brain to make memories and to be the best version of itself at any age. We always think that there's a decline. Like as we age, it's kind of like, you get worse and worse and worse. But you know what? We're actually writing,
I was
we wrote
thinking
our
that.
third book and we just like sent it to the publishers. The whole premise of the book is that your brain continues to get better and better. And your brain is actually at its best the older you are, which is completely counterintuitive to what you hear out there. And that's because all of these experiences, all of these thoughts, all of this information that you've accumulated in your life, it makes you a completely different person, a fuller person, a better human being. So, what we talk about here, as far as lifestyle is concerned, creates that engine and it makes that beautiful system in the machine to make sure that you have better memories and you function as a better person.
It's interesting because if you look at sober living houses, IOPs, and rehab hospitals, you're just like take a look at the framework. What they really do is they install structured routine that's incredibly predictable and repeatable, and it's simple and it's specific. And for a person who's coming out of a world of complete chaos, right? Zero predictability, zero safety, right? Nothing repeatable. Everything is a threat detection because what they expect from the world and what they experience are never the same. And they're there for 28 days and they're like, I got this. It's like, no, well, hang on a second. You just experienced 28 days, what 28 days feels like when you are in order, when there's structure and routine and it's simple. And so I heard a lot of that in your explanation of what the brain does and how it does it and what these lifestyle levers can do. And I think it's, one of the things I think, getting back to what Dean also said earlier is that, human beings, we want to be so romantic about ourselves. Um, that we have tried to make addiction recovery be complex so that we can seem sophisticated about it, rather than just be like, why is this not just one of the most reasonable responses to environments gone terribly wrong around this individual who had no support? Why
Yeah.
is it that? It's like, well, then let's reorganize our environment. Let's make specific and appropriate changes. Let's get really good nutrition, exercise. Let's help them unwind. Let's get their brain working again, right? Let's surround them with people that look like the life they want to live and would support them. I mean, it's like, but of course, it's like, no, we got to create all this, big to do about the addiction. Is it a disease? Is it an allergy of the body? Is it a this? Is it a that? Is it a spiritual lacking? It's like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, yeah. It's making it complex is for the sake of the seller. Simplicity and order are the first thing to actually create because your brain wants that. Your brain is designed for that, and that's why we actually in our communities we do the same thing. Simple steps to the point that it's almost ridiculous.
Yeah.
It's almost silly. We break it down to such silly levels that initially people are a little incredulous and resistant, but we say, no, stick with it. And you'll see after a couple of weeks, there's, oh my goodness, now I'm going to do the next thing and the next thing. And their tendencies to jump, to do, no, 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 don't jump. Jump's what got you there. Even the recovery part and for food, for lifestyle, for brain health, everything is a recovery.
Yeah.
Why do we talk about recoveries? Because some bad patterns were placed early on, bad patterns that were either ad hoc or the reward systems that were dysfunctional that were put in place. And to get out of it, you create simple new reward systems that you can follow, and then you become familiar on not those things, but how to create systematic, small, measurable, meaningful reward systems in your life. And then it becomes exponential.
Yeah.
Then you realize that you actually are better than what you ever thought because now you have a system that can accumulate, that can that builds on itself. So it's a wonderful system.
There's a profound sense of peace that comes from knowing what the next step is.
Oh yes,
The brain has a difficult time and it gets fatigued if it continues to create
innovate.
decisions and decisions and decisions and decisions, right? So just like our physical body where we have to like keep on doing something over and over again, the brain actually gets tired of making decisions. And and actually this applies for recovery very appropriately. If you have a model where you don't have to make decisions and you know that at 9 a.m. this is going to happen, at 11 a.m. this is going to happen, this is what you're going to eat, this is how you're going to exercise, these are the people you're going to meet, the brain then has an opportunity to become to come down at a state where it can only make decisions about important things rather than making decisions about every small little thing
Yeah.
around them.
E-
And the way-
even creativity, which is that's going to be our next book, which is one of the most important byproducts of human evolution. It's a paraphenomenon. It's incidental, but in the age of AI, that's what we're going to be left with. Creativity is not perfection. Creativity is human imperfection manifesting in ways where it connects with all other beings that are imperfect. That's it. Maybe it's not meaningful in the bigger universe, but it is meaningful for the sentient being. So be it. And that creativity has to be planned in, because I know it's an order and disorder juxtaposition that creates creativity, but schedule it in, and then that's play. That's play. The reason you have play in your life as a child is because that is programmed in you. But even that is, as you get older, you push that away. But that has to be programmed in. So simplifying and creating structures for all of this gives not just less load on that overly taxed 87 billion neurons, 1 quadrillion connections, 100 million processes per second. And it just reduces that load, also gives it direction and vector and power.
Mm,
That's the beauty of it.
yeah.
One of the things that I think is hard for people, specifically in early recovery, is like they'll hear what we're talking about now and it all makes sense to me and I'm sure to other people. But I think it's like getting from that 0 to 1 in self-confidence is so hard for so many people. Like you have to, when it comes to addiction, the way I understand it with myself and other people is you have this coping mechanism that has been used to solve emotional pain for a really long time. And then while it's doing that, you're completely self-destructing and bankrupting your entire life along the way. And then when you stop, you're now taking away this solution for your problems and you feel like crap about yourself and you're in a place where you don't know where to go. Like, is there anything that could like light up the brain's reward system or something where they could feel that motivation to like do these things that we're talking about? Because I feel like people get stuck there.
Yeah, I hate, my least favorite word in English language is motivation. Motivation is not a thing. It's a woo-woo word that's meant for those people who are selling this product online. If you can make the person believe that your motivation or that feeling of motivation and success, everything is built on process and on simple process. And you actually seeing the outcome, which is that motivational thing, as a measurable outcome of that process, you've just shifted their life. But if you make it and base it on an amorphous concept of such as motivation, I'm the most positive, high energy person you're gonna get. And Aisha will attest to this after
Oh,
23
yeah.
years. There are mornings I get up and I'm not that person. If I had to rely on that, it's disastrous.
Oh,
I
yeah.
rely on systems and then the motivation comes. I rely on failure as a data point, and that's motivating, not failure as a loss.
Right.
Failure as a data point that I actually tried something and failed, and that's actually good because now it gave me data.
Hmm.
But if you don't have those kind of metrics that are operational that you can build on, you're relying on words that fail you because those words don't are amorphous. They're like holding onto a jellyfish.
Hmm.
Worse than that, it's like holding onto a cloud.
Yeah. You know
But
what?
if you're saying that you forget about motivation, you'll feel the positive feeling if you continue this process that's measurable, and then there's no failure. It's just data, and you do it on a systematic way. And if you keep yourself in that pathway, and here's the important part. The reason that I want them, because a lot of people do this, right? They put people in a program, but they still rely on motivation and certain feelings as the outcome. That's a failure. If you rely on the system itself, completion of the system, making sure that you fail enough that you have processed numerics that you can build on, then it's like, oh my God, I can't do anything wrong. What I'm doing is incredibly good. So you shift from those softer words to system words.
You know, I talk about this so many times when I tell my story, which is that when I got into recovery, uh, my first focus was, because I was in a sober living house, so I wasn't going to use, was I wanted to reverse my chronic diseases. I wanted to reclaim health, and so I created a 7-day or 14-day experiment where I repeated these meals, and I was like, okay, I'm going to do this for 14 days, see what happens. And in those 14 days, I got some incredible data back. My blood glucose dropped by like 150 points. I wasn't weighing myself, but I lost weight. Right? I was sleeping better. I felt better. My blood pressure came down. I was like, oh, that's interesting. Seems like maybe I have figured something out. Not sure yet, but I'm now motivated to find out more. I'm going to run another 14-day experiment. In fact, I'm going to do exactly the same thing and see if it keeps me going in the same direction. And I'll find out if I need to refine or adjust anything down the road. What I noticed in doing it was that my stress, my anxiety greatly reduced. We talked about this a little bit earlier. Ayesha was talking about it. I like to tell people this: when I knew exactly what I was going to do, when I was going to do it, where I was going to do it, that it was easy enough to do and interesting enough to me. It wasn't telling me what I was going to do. It was telling me everything else I no longer need to worry about. My brain was like, oh, done. It's just that.
Yeah.
We got so much more capacity for other things now. Don't even worry about tomorrow with this. That's not even in the computer's algorithm anymore. We're done. We're just going to go that direction. And so the system strategy, in my opinion, is the most effective way to get someone to see the potential that they have. And it's not because they're gifted. It's because the system had been refined enough to show them what they're capable of. It's like, we need to remove the moral struggle of addiction. It's like, if you want it bad enough, you'll get it. It's like, well, that's a terrible thing to tell someone. It's like, hang on a second. That's an awful thing to say. It's like, maybe the reason why they're not doing well is because there's no system holding them up, or the system that they're using needs to be refined, and you just tell them to do it harder.
Yeah.
It's like,
so how can people find that system? Like, I think that was my question I was getting at, not necessarily like the motivation, but like, this is all, to me, easier said than done for a lot of people who are like in the thick of it and just feel like complete shit about themselves, excuse my language. It's like, I don't know what to do. Like, how do I figure it out? Like, what's a simple way that they could come to terms with what would work for them in order to see like progress like I've made, or like Adam was talking about?
Yeah, I think that's the $10 million question, right? And I think that's what the whole self-help industry is trying to do. Every week there's a new book popping up, and there's a new bestseller copy, there's a new course, there's a new influencer, there's a new head talking about all of this thing. And it's because it's really difficult to see ourselves as that person getting into the system. And that's what this conversation is all about, and that's what you all are trying to do, right? How do you introduce someone who is struggling through addiction to understand that building the system is the way to go? Uh, and I'm not saying I have the perfect answer for it. I'll be very humble about it. I think that's the most challenging part, especially if somebody's hurting, especially if somebody has a lot of emotional storm that they're going through. How would you expect them to kind of say like, okay, I'm going to just pull myself with the bootstraps and start, eating more this and that and exercising? It's hard. So it requires a community. It requires the right kind of an environment for them to have something or someone holding them there to do one thing. And it starts with one thing. A lot of behavioral neurology and self-help and psychological, concepts start with what we refer to as a keystone behavior. Keystone behavior, or that one thing that actually starts you on that path, and then the second thing is linked to that, and then the third thing, and then the fourth thing. It literally is as simple as that. A keystone behavior could be waking up at the same time in the morning. A
You're
keystone behavior could be, I'm just going to make sure that I pull the curtains and look at and allows for some sunshine to come in every time I wake up in the
Look
morning.
right into the sun.
Well, not that. You don't want to burn your eyeballs. And a
actually,
lot of people have done that.
Aisha, I
Yeah.
think you're absolutely right. I heard Jordan Peterson talk about this recently. He said the problem isn't that you don't know where you want to go. The problem is you've been convinced that you have to aim for the highest bar, and that's really poor strategy. In fact, what you want to do is try to aim, you should be aiming lower, much lower. Sit in your bed and meditate for about 10 minutes and think, what's one thing that I'm doing wrong that I could do better, that I would do better, and if I would, it would propel me forward. It's like, why don't I just wake up every morning at the same time and go for a 5-minute walk? That's one thing that you could do better. And it's like, that's the beginning of a system, right? So instead of, and to Doug's point, I understand you take someone out of chaos and you put them into recovery on day one, and now their drug of choice is removed and they have no, ability to deaden their emotional experience. And they're like, my target has to be, I have to get out of here and I have to fix everything now because this is unbearable. And so it's hard for someone to say, no, actually, I need you to just go to like 3 meetings this week. And then I need you to go for walks. Like, you can't, no, like I'm bankrupt. I got no job prospects. My relationships are gone. Maybe my health is gone. You just want me to go to meetings and walks? That's not going to save my life. And so there's this big hurdle, which is this person feels like the entire world is caving in on them. And they don't have the time to wait. They have to get it all figured out now. And I think that's where a lot of the struggle comes from, which is like, we need you to slow down and we need you to focus on one thing, because we need you to see that this is not about fixing everything. This is about finding the things you could fix really well right now.
Yeah, and I think it's hard too because there probably is, some room for certain people to be like, to just suck it up and be like, stop even complaining about your life for the last like 6 months straight, and you've done nothing and made zero effort on your end to try to
I got
change
that talk
anything.
week 2
Yeah,
of
so did I, and I think and it helped us, and I know not everyone responds to that, and I know that a lot of times it can be non-productive. I've also seen people just get coddled, and that doesn't get them anywhere either, because now they're just kind of revalidating themselves to how bad their life is and how powerless they are, which, I mean, to me is not helpful either. I just think the nuance is just so hard for people.
So here's the thing. If we approach it that way, it's an amorphous thing that we are throwing at people without knowing where they are in their journey. We
Yeah.
all start with beliefs. So let's start there. There are beliefs. Whether I even exist in this universe or I'm part of a simulation is a belief. Yeah. So let's just start. We believe that we're here. We're believe, and you have to start with people where the conversation you have with them is the first conversation you have with them, seeing where they are for this particular thing, as far as their belief with that particular thing. So and trans theoretical model of the behavior. There are many models. That this one, there's pre-contemplation, contemplation, action, all of that, maintenance, and all of that, and then habit. And somebody could be at the pre-contemplation stage when it comes to food. They could be at the contemplation stage when it comes to exercise. Then it could be an action stage when it comes to stress management and all that. So telling somebody they just have to do it is just saying that you are me, be like me, and it's not helpful. If we truly want to help people, we have to invest. What do we have to invest in? Invest in the kind of conversation to figure out where they are in that journey. When it comes to recovery, what is their beliefs around that recovery? A lot of people they're beating themselves up because they were raised with the idea that they should just pull themselves by the bootstrap. The worst, stupidest, dumbest, can I say more? Most messed up idea ever. You're not a bootstrap, or you're not a boot, and we are processes. Accept that. Then we do is find out where they are in that journey, or do they believe? What are their beliefs as far as recovery? And if you want to help them and you want to take them in the most meaningful pathway, first get rid of guilt and blame. No, There's no guilt and blame. What's the point? You're going to use guilt and blame as a as a as a iron to shape them? To what? And in what guilt and blame? You are a set of behaviors that got here because certain other behaviors and environments got you here. That's not letting them off. That's not letting them off. Now, do you want to recover? You have to do something. Okay. What you have to do is figure out where you are as far as your connection with that drug of choice. How does it pull you? What does it do? What environments does that? How often do you do that? What time of day do you do that? Those are data points. Second, after that, you say, okay, so now that you are and this person and there's no blame, you have to take some actions. And the actions are beautiful. That's why I said the previous thing. The actions are going to be small. You have to make them believe that. You can't take somebody from pre-contemplation to contemplation by just throwing words at them. You have to make them believe that. To believe that your recovery is in small steps, it's in these steps, and the emotions you're going to feel are not the emotions of elation and nirvana overnight. The emotions you're going to feel are the emotions of feeling good about finishing that small thing. You do that. You do that. If you convince them of the small behavior and the small outcome, you've saved that person. Everything else, we're just self-aggrandizing and just doing mental masturbation for ourselves. Yes, I said it. And please don't cut that off. That's it.
I think I think you're absolutely right. I mean, I think Adam and I speak from our own experience.
I'm on a flow now. If we do that, and if we believe that, then it's not about us. It's not about our package of liberal, conservative, all this coming in and say, pull yourself by the bootstrap. Stop it. It's not about that. Where you are, what are the inputs, what are the outputs, and you have to believe it's the small behaviors. And I'll talk about what behaviors in a second. And your emotional recovery is succeeding with that behavior. And whenever you fail, it's not a failure. It's a data point that you reflect on. What happened? Oh, you went to this party and these parties, this happened. Oh, you did this at morning, which you should do it at night. And that adjustments are the reward.
Yeah.
That's it. And then where you start, if it's general, my general thing is exercise. And the exercise is not run the marathon or an ultra marathon and Death Valley. Forget about those people making those kind of claims. And we know who we're talking about. That they're doing more harm than good. Yes, I said it. It's about doing the 20-minute walk in front of your house or in front of a show in your living room.
Could be 10.
It could be 10 minutes. Get that done. Check it off. On my we have in our living room. There's a window seal, little French windows. I write because I injured both shoulders. The recovery is small steps. This bands, 15-pound bands, which I would have laughed at 5 years ago. I'm going to do 10 of those and then a check. The checks are the dopamine releases. I did it. 10 of them, 15 of them, 16 of them. And then I do some crunches. Measurable, systematic, and it feels unbelievable. And I'm recovering from shoulder pain. If we really want to help people, we meet them where they are. And convince them that their recovery is in small bits and their joy is in completion of those small bits. Everything else is mental masturbation.
I love it. Shrink the horizon, give them something they could see, make it easy to do and measurable. It's like your job is not to get sober for the rest of your life. Your job is to figure out how you're going to live in a way where use is no longer necessary. Okay, that's a different strategy. Let's try something for 7 days and see how you feel about it. Right? And then what we're going to do is we're going to see what happened, find out what worked, find out what didn't. We're going to adjust the system, and we're going to run another experiment. We're going to do that for about a year. And at the end of the year, you're going to be a completely different person in how you approach life. Are you in or are you out? It's like that's what I think is my view on recovery, which is stop telling the person that they are an addict. They always will be. I wish I could remove that belief from life, period.
I want you guys to come to our Inspire program. We have the largest brain health initiative in the country right now. It's online. It's free. It's for communities. It's for all communities. Initially started in the faith communities because they're a great venue to connect. But now it's going to be Inspire California, then Inspire USA, then Inspire Global. And we set intentions on Monday. We reflect on them in a data analysis way on Fridays. Small adjustments, and it is unbelievable. And on Wednesdays, the two of us go live and we bring other doctors out, and we would love some you guys there. And 15-minute talk, not diatribes. 15-minute talk, very systematic to tell the
You
people.
can do a 15-minute talk?
I literally, that's me saying hi, basically. And yeah, that's me. But it's unbelievable
It is.
how
It is.
the communities are changing.
No, I love this. I love this part of our conversation where we take this very amorphous cloud of a human being with emotions and errors and flaws and successes, and we make it almost like a Microsoft sheet
Yeah.
with numbers and data, columns and rows for your emotions, for your habits, for everything that you do. And you, for the first time, you actually get to meet yourself to see the patterns. And if we do that for a person going through recovery, I think it's very helpful.
When it comes to diet, I know like the mind diet is something that's been well studied for cognitive function. DASH diet, I've currently been doing my best to follow for blood pressure regulation. We got Mediterranean diet, portfolio diet, all these different themes for people to follow. If you were to kind of recommend, if somebody's like, hey, like, I want to try to do better with my nutrition, like to improve my overall life and recovery and feel good about myself, would you recommend like something like the mind diet or Mediterranean diet for overall health and well-being?
Yeah, that's a great question, Doug. So when you look at all of these dietary patterns, they're basically a scoring system. And if you look at the theme of what they represent, whether it's the mind, Mediterranean, DASH, portfolio, vegetarian, paleo, whatever it is, right? Like they come with different names. Beneath all of it is if you eat the right foods, you score higher. And if you eat the foods that are harmful, you score lower. And when they do research with these dietary patterns, people who adhere to the healthier versions of it, they actually have better brain health. They have sharper memories. They have better attention and focus. And over a long period of time, they have lower risk of diseases like stroke, Alzheimer's, vascular dementia, Parkinson's disease, and some others. What is it? What are the foods? It's essentially mostly plants. So people who eat fruits and vegetables, whole grains, legumes like beans, tofu, tempeh, nuts and seeds, they do very well. If they cut down on salt, if they cut down on sources of bad fats or unhealthy fats, which are called saturated fats, they're found in meat, high fat dairy products, cream, cheeses, things of that nature. If they adhere to that pattern, they do better. And it could depend on the person where they are, right? But we simplify it. We tell our community, if you can't do anything else, and if you have one thing you can do about your dietary pattern, well, first of all, don't skip meals. That's a very important thing. Eat. And then second, if you're going to eat, add 1 cup of spinach every single day to either your lunch or dinner. It can be as simple as that.
You
And that actually is a great way to kind of start them on that journey of eating better, but it could be started with just one thing at a time.
And we added with the data a very robust study, and then robust study that has been followed again afterwards, shown. You talk about superfood. We don't believe in superfoods, but if there is a superfood, 1 cup of greens added to your diet every day, 1 cup of greens added to your diet every day, improves your brain health by 11 years over time.
Yeah. So when they tested people who actually ate greens, leafy greens on a regular basis, their brain, regardless of their age, functioned at 11 years earlier, like or compared to someone who was 11 years younger. That's insane. And
What
so
was,
that's just one thing you can do.
what was the exposure time required to get that 11-year benefit?
4 years.
Wow.
Yeah.
Here's another superfood that nobody can make money or super act that a brisk walk, 25 minutes brisk walk every morning.
Yeah.
25 minutes brisk walk. No marathons, no, weird, I'm not going to name them because
Yeah, I know.
but
No names.
yeah, just a brisk walk, 25 minutes, reduce your chance of Alzheimer's by 45%. Now that's Alzheimer's. But for everyone else, it improved your brain that much.
Yeah, yeah. People who were sedentary in one of the research who didn't do anything, right? Couch potatoes. Nothing. They started walking for 5 minutes.
5 minutes first.
5 minutes. They jumped from 0% benefit to 41% lower risk of cognitive decline. We're not talking about Alzheimer's disease. We're talking about forgetfulness. 41%. Look at that, just 10 minutes. And when they actually improved that to 20 minutes of a walk per day, it actually jumped to 65% or 61%. It was the number.
So those two studies are
huge difference.
unbelievable. And we're talking about 45% in one study, 60% in the other study from just walking.
So you're getting us excited. Okay, so when they actually, we have evidence for that, right? So they have imaging where they actually scan the brain to see like how does the brain change when people live a healthy life, right? So there's a part of the brain called the hippocampus. The hippocampus is a very active part of the brain. It's responsible for memory, creating memory and storing memory. When people exercise, that part of the brain literally grows in size. You know what the gray matter is, right? The gray matter are the cells of the brain, and the white matters are the connections. The gray matter got thicker. And these are people who are in their 50s and 60s. They are not people in their 20s. So, regardless of your age, wherever you are in life, whether you're in recovery mode or not, your brain has tremendous capacity to continue to grow and thrive, and the cells make more and more connections.
Leg strength, bigger legs, bigger brains. Twin study. The ones that did leg strengthening exercises at MCI stage, at pre-Alzheimer's stage, and versus the ones that just did stretching.
And for the listeners, MCI stands for mild
cognitive impairment, but it's a pre-Alzheimer's stage. The ones that did leg strengthening exercises actually avoided Alzheimer's by 40%.
So 47% of them actually reversed their mild cognitive impairment and they became normal after they started strengthening their body,
legs.
But specifically their legs.
And for us, leg strength is everything. You should see our legs on the table. They're huge. We can't even sit next to each other.
I don't claim that.
Yeah,
I won't claim that.
But leg strength is brain strength. So these are simple things just from exercise and nutrition that profoundly changes your brain. So there's incredible hope and for people who are recovering to even if they've had damage. I should show you images of people who've had big strokes and then they recover from stroke where you actually lost part of the brain.
Yeah.
And after a few years, they recovered to the point that they were better than before as far as memory and executive function. So there's only hope, but we have to guide people properly.
So Dean, what you're saying is, are you saying that thick thighs save lives?
There you go.
There we go.
That's the title of the next book, isn't it?
Yeah. Thick thighs saves lives. There's your merch right there. Yeah.
Put it on a t-shirt.
That's right. We'll do that at our retreat.
Yeah.
That's it. Yeah.
Amazing. So okay, so serving of greens, one cup of greens per day, 25-minute brisk walk. And then let's give the audience one more thing that they can do that they could start doing tomorrow. So because I think everybody, for the majority of people, I think most people have the capacity to add 1 cup of greens to their day. They don't have to eat it all at once.
You add one, I'll add one.
So, is that okay? Okay. I'll pick sleep. I think we underestimate sleep. Sleep is always an afterthought, isn't it? It's like, oh, I absolutely hate it when people say, I'll sleep when I die. But really? No. Sleep is the most dynamic, the most active part of your day. Even if you're like completely out and you don't remember anything. I mean, think about it. The body must have really needed it for you to be completely knocked out for 7 or 8 hours without any protection, without, with being exposed to danger, basically. And that's how important it is. When we sleep, the brain does a lot of things. 2 very important things that happens is it cleanses itself.
By the way, it's the only real cleanse.
So when we sleep, the brain essentially has a system called the glymphatic system. It's a fluid. And it has a group of cells called the microglia that gets activated and they go around the brain and they collect all of the debris or the garbage material that is created during the day. The brain is very active during the day, right? So it creates a lot of byproducts. All of that gets cleansed and thrown away during sleep. And when we don't sleep, or if we have poor sleep quality, which means like it's interrupted or you don't get enough hours, all of that accumulates and it stops you from remembering things. It impacts your memory. It impacts your emotions. And over a long period of time, it can actually accumulate the kinds of proteins that put you at a higher risk for Alzheimer's disease and dementias. The second thing that happens is your memory gets organized properly. So your short-term memory becomes a long-term memory during sleep. So it's really, really important to get enough sleep. What is yours, Steve?
Creativity. Do one creative, challenging thing every day, at least for 10, 15 minutes. Creative, challenging. Creative means something out of the box, pushing yourself on the edge. It could be something you're doing, but on the edge of that thing. Push your brain. That actually cultivates the garden, go beyond its normal boundaries. It makes it bigger. It makes it more connected. That's resilience. When your brain connects, when your systems of your brain connects beyond their borders, it's resilience. So even if you have a head trauma or you have some kind of recovering from addiction, it creates the resilience that will not be broken. So be creative at least 10 to 15 minutes a day or more.
Examples.
Drawing, if you were never a drawer, or the music, learning a musical instrument or new music. I do guitar. I do terribly, but it's okay. I'm killing other people's brains, but mine is recovery. Uh, um, um, uh, Poetry, dancing, uh, taking courses, learning something, building a group, doing a podcast. These are things that push your brain beyond the normal, and that's what grows the connections at a rate of billions per day. So that's why it's important.
All right. Eat a cup of greens every day. Take a 25-minute walk, right? Then do something creative, and at the end of the day, get a good night's sleep. These are the takeaways. And I think everybody, if you're in it, if you're on day one, or if you're on 2 years in, and these are something that you can start adding to your life. They're very specific. It's a low bar. It's measurable, and it has an intended outcome that you can feel confident you'll experience at some point, which will create motivation.
Yeah.
Love it.
Beautiful
summary.
Beautiful summary.
Yeah. Hey, listen, we want to thank you so much for coming on the show, having this conversation with us. We really appreciate it, because Doug and I are very much in the boat that modern mental health recovery has some real challenges. It's really decided that it wants to be a validation system. It wants to tell you that you have permission to feel what you're feeling, and that what you're feeling makes sense, and there's nothing wrong with you. And I'm like, first of all, I don't need permission from you to feel stuff that happens without my consent already. Number two, I don't want you to tell me that I'm perfect the way I am, because my life is falling apart. So I'm hoping there's something wrong. And what we need is agency. We need to restore confidence, and we need to give people a meaningful aim that will move them in a direction that feels safe and hopeful. That is a systems strategy. That is something that
You
is
guys
not
are doing.
ambiguous. It has to be very specific.
Yeah.
And that's
It's such an important point.
yeah.
Yeah.
So thank you so much. And for everyone, where can people find you? Where are the listeners, if they want to know more about you, if they want to know more about what you all are up to, because you are up to a lot, how can they find you?
Thank you very much for having us, first of all, Adam and Doug. This was such a pleasure. You guys are doing amazing, incredible work. And again, this work is a process. So we're very happy to be a part of this conversation. They can find us at the website, The Brain Docs. We're The Brain Docs.
The brain
Social
doc.
media, The Brain Docs. And so you can find us there. We'd be more than happy to answer any questions people have. They can contact us.
Great.
Awesome.
And what's the name of your book? Because you have a few. Because I want people to get these books.
And tell you, and for another week, we'll release
Next
it.
week we can
But
tell
we're
you.
so proud that it's in partnership with AARP, and they were extremely rigid. They don't partner with people, not this way, in this way, like full partnership. It's almost like 1,000 references, and the amount of work that we had to do as far as the reference and validity is unheard of. So we're very proud of this book, and it's very comprehensive brain book. Everything you've heard from but in one book, with 9 essential things. Very, very. Some of them you heard here, but get the book, because it's going to change lives. I think.
We'll send you a copy.
Can't wait.
We'll send you a copy.
Can't wait. Thank you all so much.